we're in July and football season is about to crank up,
Right.
not just college and NFL, but at the youth level as well, which is what you're primarily here to talk about because most of our audience is interested in youth sports. So Guardian Caps is all about football.
Right.
So why don't y'all tell us about the invention of the cap? I know you've got a couple here for those of us who are watching. So tell us a little bit about the technology.
Yeah, so the technology of the Guardian Cap it's a really simple machine overall. All it is a soft shell cover that goes on the outside of a traditional plastic football helmet. What it does is it works in two primary ways. One is it absorbs the impact forces and decelerates that impact over time. And two is it's actually decoupled from the helmet itself. So it's connected through 4 points of contact, as well as this elastic piece on the back to make it one size fits all. So the impact force, rather than going directly into one spot in the athlete's helmet, is actually decelerated around the outside of the shell itself. So it's a very simple technology. That's the primary benefit. What's interesting is we found a lot of secondary benefits with the cap as well. So one of those that we tested out was actually it reduces heat and temperature on athletes' heads by up to 15 degrees by absorbing the heat into the Guardian Cap rather than directly impacting the athlete's head. Secondly, we found that there was a benefit when it came to vibration and noise frequencies. There's been a lot of studies with military and those types of incidences that any sort of overpressure or noise, like when you hear two hard shell helmets hitting each other, that it can impact an athlete and potentially cause brain injuries. And then lastly, we found a benefit when it comes to secondary and ancillary blows, not only just head to head, but head to knee, head to shoulder. It's an interesting story. The reason why the NFL actually bought Guardian Caps for the first time was the Los Angeles Rams, the first year, 2021, that they had Matt Stafford on the team. In his first preseason practice, he threw a pass, over-rotated, hit his thumb on a defensive lineman's helmet, and almost fractured his thumb. The next day, Sean McVay called us up and said, I want Guardian Caps for my entire team. So they loaded out their entire team the first year in Guardian Caps, all 100 athletes, and ended up winning the Super Bowl that year. I'm not going to say that's because of us, but
Why not?
Yeah.
but why not?
Sure sounds great.
Yeah.
So what's your relationship now with the NFL? And talk about this new ruling. That
So
you
the
came up with.
NFL, we were first on their radar in, I'd probably say 2016. And that's when they were really trying to tackle the head injury crisis that they were seeing from their former players. They launched a challenge in 2017 called their Head Health Tech Challenge, which is a mouthful. And we submitted and won that challenge. So that put us on their radar to where they started testing our product. Now, at the same time, you got to remember, we started with South Carolina 2012, Clemson right after. So these feeder programs, right? These Power 5, Power 4 teams that are feeding the NFL in the draft, these guys have all worn them. So they all had feedback to give the NFL, like, man, I was fresh for game day. I felt better after practice. If we have this option at Alabama and Georgia and Tennessee, why don't I have that option in the NFL? So they heard what their players were saying, but they had to do their due diligence.
Of course.
And so, they tested us for a little while, and they started paying attention to all of the different data feedback from these college NCAA programs. So like Jake said, they allowed it in 2020, 2021, and then they had such phenomenal feedback that they mandated it in 2022, which surprised the heck out of us, but mandated in 2022.
Yeah, Erin and Lee were leaving church one day on, what was it, in March or April, and got a call and said, hey, in the next month, can you outfit all 32 teams, all offensive and defensive linemen with Guardian Caps? And we said, figure it out. Yeah. So
Can we? I don't know, but we're going to figure it out. That's what we did. And so it was O-line, D-line, tight ends, and linebackers. And they did it practice only, preseason, only through the first preseason game. So it was a really short window. And afterwards, the data was that it had reduced concussions for those position groups over 50-something% compared to the previous 3-year average. And so 2023, they expanded the mandate and they added a few more position groups and they went through the postseason. again, another 50-something% reduction in concussion. And so this next year, they're doing pretty much every position group except quarterbacks and kickers, right? And then through the postseason. And then they also are allowing it in games if a player chooses. So it's pretty spectacular, because we did set out to solve for that youth player. We set out for the young developing brain and to reduce the impact of all those hits over their career. Never did we ever think the NFL would come a-calling. And it was just exciting to us, because then that filters down.
Well, y'all have done great work. So it seems like the opportunity here, you've got the NFL all in now. You've got a lot of colleges that are bought in. I heard Deion Sanders is like a huge proponent. Y'all can talk about that in a minute. But we've got a lot of parents, who are our listeners, and a lot of high school athletic directors and coaches. And, what we hear about all the time is parents saying, I don't know if I want my kid to play football because of the head injuries. So it seems like, the opportunity is huge across youth sports for people to understand this. And I love the fact that it's been around a long time. Y'all have got a lot of history and a lot of data. So what do you say to those parents? How do they find out more? How do they get this equipment?
Yeah, you can reach out to us at guardiansports.com. All of our contact information is on there. We're also local in Dick's Sporting Goods and Academy Sports and Outdoors, as well as Shields. So if you want a Guardian cap, we try and keep these really cost effective for all athletes. Our goal is not to be profit motivated. We are mission motivated. And what that looks like is getting as many athletes in Guardian caps as possible. So when you see online, you'll see the Guardian cap retails for about $69.99. But when you buy in bulk, you buy for teams 20 or more, you're talking mid $50 price point. So we're not trying to get rich on Guardian caps. Our job is football means so much to us and so much to so many different communities. If they can possibly play the sport that they love, potentially without those repercussions, why not?
Well, it's the most popular sport in the country, but the one thing that's kind of like just kind of nagging people is just what about head injuries? What about concussions? And if this is a way that the sport can continue, but even in a safer way, that's amazing. And you guys are doing great
Brad,
work.
because we hear from so many college programs and now high school programs that some of them are actually wearing them in games, which why not? These guys want to make it to the college level. And with NIL deals, it's kind of like, we need to be as healthy as we can going forward. And so, a lot of these athletes are asking for it now, which is super, super cool. But it's one size fits all, like Jake said, and they can wear the same cap, from the time they're 8, 9, 10, all the way through, to the college programs. And, you're looking, if they last maybe 4 or 5 years for a youth, you're looking at $12 a year, something like that.
I mean, data wise, when it comes to football, and how scary it can be for certain parents to get involved with it. Purdue did a study a few years ago that the average high school lineman takes between 1,000 to 1,500 hits to the head every single season. A non-lineman takes between 500 to 1,000 hits to the head. That's consistent car crashes, essentially, every single time that these athletes are going into. Boston University says that for every 2.6 years that you play football, your risk of CTE doubles. And I mean, that's starting at a high school player that maybe has the opportunity to make it to college. You're talking at least 8 years before they ever get to their first professional contract. Not to mention some of these youth players. It's scary statistics, but what we have the opportunity to do is potentially reduce those ramifications for these athletes over time. So if they can play this sport that they love without feeling that impact, and by reducing those repercussions, that's what our goal is. And extending not only for these athletes, but potentially for their families down the line, because what happens is you play high school or youth football, you think, oh, nothing's going to happen to me. But I mean, we knew NFL athletes. We worked with Jerome Bettis, Tim Lester, Freddie McCreary, Mark Kelso, and these guys would have to sit in a dark room once a week with nothing around them because it was just the ramifications of their time playing football, where they thought they were just providing for their families. It's coming back to haunt them.
Sure.
So how do we try and reduce that over time? And how
Well,
can we
there's always an
benefit them?
opportunity to make things better. Like you guys, I mean, there's so many benefits to football. There just are. And if you can do it in a safer way, why not?
Yep.
Why not? And it is also, we hear from a lot of the college programs and high school programs now that it's also about hand injuries. It's fingers getting caught between two helmets.
Yep.
And, the brain area is a scary thing to talk about. But, what about helmet to knee and elbow and ribs and that kind of stuff? Make it better. There's no reason not to.